All right, Trevor, great to see everyone this morning. Some return faces, some new faces, and really blessed to be able to do this. It's a very busy time, obviously, for all of you, for all of me as well. I'm a little bit of a masochist on Yom Kippur, so I speak about 6 different times. So I've got a lot of prep ahead, but the things that are staple, sometimes we focus a lot on the things that are the out of the ordinary thing, when really actually the biggest impact, I think, are the commitments that we do. And I take this very seriously. The Friday morning, I don't take it for granted at all that we carve out a little bit of time every week. I think has a lot more power collectively over time. The 15 minutes that we spend versus the 24 hours almost that we'll spend in a synagogue. Not that that's not important, but it's really about what happens afterwards. And that's why these types of commitments I find are extremely important. And I want to speak about that a little bit. So the title that I threw out there is Neilah, how to really nail it and what it means. If I can ask, just if someone wants to throw out, what's the classical understanding of what the time of Neilah, why it's so important, what's happening at that time? What's Neilah means like locked, the doors are closing, right? Anybody have a hesber, an explanation of what that means? Why is it such a critical time? What doors are closing? What's happening at that moment? Anybody ever hear an explanation? And if not, then I'll just give you. Oh yeah, Gary?
No, it's when basically the book is being closed, and the book of life.
Yeah. So a big understanding, exactly like Gary said, is it's ending. The book's closing, right? The doors of the gates are closing. Everything we put in from Rosh Hashanah up until now, it's all being decided at that moment. And you got to get in your word before it all closes in, because once the gates are shut, and that's it. The jury walks out of the room, the game is over, and we just wait to see what exactly is going to happen. And that obviously has a certain power to that imagery, that if we really thought, I've got a few last words to throw in before the gates close, what would I say? But there's another explanation that's brought down by the Rabbi, which I think is so powerful, and actually has the ability to, like I said, to nail something in which otherwise wouldn't be. So for the longest time, the way I viewed the closing of the gates was in a manner of the fact that, okay, in a few moments, the gates are going to be closed, and I'm going to be locked on the outside. And that's it. Like, how often do you get into the palace? How often do you get your words onto the desk of the president or prime minister? None of which today would probably be effective anyhow. So it's not that it's such a big, schus or merit to be able to get to the presidents and prime ministers of these days in our day and age. But if we're talking about God and saying, I've got a few more opportunities to throw in a couple of words, wouldn't that be great as I see the doors closing? But what if, and some of the deeper sources explain, what's actually happening is the doors are about to close, but you're not on the outside, you're on the inside. You have what's called like yechidus, private time. Meaning we're usually wrapped up, and there's a huge importance in being with community and coming together. Kol Nidre Night talks about how everyone, no matter the background, everyone's got to be together. We understand the idea of Yachad Nenatzech, together we're victorious. There's a power with Jews being together. For those who had the privilege to either be there or to watch online of the October 7th memorial that they had at Federation, honestly, while it was a beautiful presentation, just being there amongst so many Jews together, you feel that there's something purifying about that experience, which is amazing. But then there's the individual. And very often we get lost in all the noise of what's happening around us, that we don't actually spend the personal time thinking. And therefore, the deeper sources explain that what is Neilah? Neilah is the doors to the gates of the palace are closing, and you're inside, and the doors are closed. Meaning that's the 1 hour, the culmination of everything that you have leading up to, where God says, you know what, this is a great day. Thanks for coming out with everybody. You guys sang a little, you davened a little, you said a kalmale, it was fantastic. You know what, but you and I didn't get a private moment together to say, like, so what do you want for the upcoming year? And I think this year more than ever, I was just talking to my wife, there are all these things coming at us about memorials and remembering the name. We have to remember everybody. We have to remember those that are lost. We have to remember those that are chatufim, are hostages. We have to remember those that are injured. We have to remember those that are fighting. We've got so many people to remember in our tefillos, and those all should be offered and thought about. But the one thing we can't forget about is, who am I in this storyline? What role do I want to play? What kind of Jewish heart within me is it awakened? And if God were to say, so tell me, what are you planning for the next year? Like, what kind of Jew are you gonna be? What kind of values are you gonna live? What kind of growth are you gonna express? We say the words that open the ark, at least in our shul, and maybe they do in others as well. And I should put out there, by the way, if anybody does need a place, for the holidays, for anything, all of it, Kol Nidre or just some of it, I do Neilah in our shul. That's the one feel I do on the high holidays. That's the one that I sort of took stake on, that I close it up at the community. Anyone's welcome to come. If you go to the door and you don't have a ticket, just say Rabbi Lipner sent me. They'll let you in. That's the secret password. I just made it up, but hopefully that'll work. But it would be an honor. And I say this also, and I say this with humility, and not because what we're going to do is that great. I'm sure where places are. It's funny. There's an article I want to write, which I can't. I should have written it before I was a shul rabbi, but I can't write it now that I am a shul rabbi. I always wanted to write an article in the CJN when it existed in full print, saying, if you're not actually getting something from your synagogue, find a different one. Now I can't say that because it sounds self-serving, right? But the truth is, like, if you belong to a club, I had the good fortune of speaking in Oakdale for UJA on Sunday. I'm only a mini golfer. Trust me, I wasn't on the greens bichlal at all. But if a person says, this isn't doing it for me, they say, what, I'm going to stop paying dues. Why do I need this, right? I want to find a place where it's better spent. So I do urge you, it doesn't have to be my place, but if you find yourself in a rhythm where it's just not doing anything, it's not moving you, right, then you should move on and find a place that does. So if anybody does need a place, you're obviously welcome to join. But at the end of the day, right, when a person sits there and comes up to Kol Nidre day, it's about to an Neilah night. It's about, okay, we're about to close the chapter of what it is that I want, and Hashem, I just want to have what's called an emes talk. I want to be honest with you. I want to be truthful. This is really what I want to be. This is what I want to do. These are the obstacles that I'm facing. This is where I need help. And he's like, great, it's just me and you. And the great thing is he already knows our situation. He knows what our challenges are and what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and where we're trying and where we're not trying. So we don't even have to sit there and explain the whole story. Ironically, that whole process of being in the intimate sort of connection, and this is all of what tefillah is. The word tefillah comes from the word of lihit palel, which is reflexive, means to self-judge, to self-introspect. It's not me telling God things about him that he doesn't know. It's me trying to figure out things inside that I usually don't access and have the ability to be able to bring out. So when I look at the words of the prayers, and this year more than ever, those words are coming alive in ways that we never understood them. Those words don't help me understand the words. The words help me understand me and my relationship to those things. And Neilah, therefore, is the most powerful moment because that's when you lock and load what you want to do for the rest of the year. And if you walk out without a game plan, it's like any business. If people have a retreat and they talk about everything that's going on and they don't have a closing of, okay, tachlis, like, brass tacks, what are we going to do moving forward to improve the business? Or even if the business is doing well, to make it go from good to great, if there's no action plan, then there is no action. And therefore, Neilah is a time of tremendous opportunity, not to view it as, oh, I got to throw a few more prayers in there, a Hail Mary, hopefully something will go in. It's saying, after everything that's happened around me, I would argue since last year, October 7th, and I've processed everything over the year, and I've started a new Rosh Hashanah, struggled with, what does that mean? What about our prayers? Where are we? When I see a potential turn of what's happening, and yet at the same time, I sit there and see that another couple of soldiers were lost just a day ago, and I struggle with all of that can be, that's important to keep in mind, but then there's the me. So Hashem, what do you want me to do? And I want to share with you something that I might share in my community because it was part of a call that we had with Jen Early. Jen Early was a wonderful woman. I can send you the recording. Is a wonderful woman who lost, unfortunately, a dear son, Binyamin, in battle. She said many things which were golden, and I can share the interview with anyone who's interested. It really is very worth watching. I would argue even before Yom Kippur, if you want it, you can send me a message. But one of the things that she said is they're fighting for the Jewish people, and what we should do is anything we do, we should say, I'm doing this for the Jewish people. She gave mundane examples. A person wants to speak Lashon Hara about someone, say, you know what? I'm not going to. You know what? Because I'm doing this for the Jewish people. A person who usually doesn't go ahead and have Friday night dinner or never goes to shul during the year says, you know what? I think I'm going to go this once. Why? Because it's not just about me. I'm doing it for the Jewish people. I'm growing and developing who I am because to elevate the Jewish people means the Jewish person himself or herself has to elevate it as well. And therefore, I would love you to keep in mind this image of a door closing and literally calling your name. Hey, Rafi, you know what? Come inside for a second. I'm going to close the door, have a seat. Let's just have a heart-to-heart discussion. Me and my creator. Because we know that if we're down here in the world, it's because there's a purpose why we're here. You only hire workers if the worker has a function in your company. And our contract only gets renewed because Hashem says, you know what? I need you down here for something. Let's talk about how you can fulfill your mission and your role even better. Nobody expects perfection from any worker, from any staff member, from anyone. People just expect them to be constantly improving and growing, moving up the ladder as well. And the best way to do that is you have a 360, and then you sit down with the person who's your employer and says, listen, this is what we're looking to achieve this year. This is where I need you. And very often the answers don't come from them. We know the answers ourselves. We find those points which keep coming into our minds, things that we're thinking about. I don't think it's just me. I know that what comes in my mind is different than everybody else's mind. We're each unique, but we've all got these voices that come in once in a while and say, you know what? You should probably think about doing this. And then we brush it off or we move past it. Neilah, which also means to fix, to lock in, at na'al, right? Lin'ol means to lock a door. You don't only close the door, you fix and you nail in what it is that you want to do. You make that commitment. It should be tiny. It should be small. No gross, changes, total overhauls of anything is ever successful. But if there's not any movement forward at all, right, then we've missed the opportunity of what the entire period is for. And that's why things like these, like I started and we'll end with that, things like these and adding something in that actually becomes part of your life, not a stop in the day. The analogy I like to give is, if you have a good insurance plan, you go to the dentist once or twice, depending on how much it covers, right? If you go, let's say, once or twice a year, it's fantastic. You get cleaned, you get your fluoride treatment, it sets you back on your path. But the most important part after you go to the dentist is then you have to brush every single day, just a little bit. You don't need the fluoride, you don't need the treatment, you don't need the scaling, you don't need any of that stuff, right? The big stuff happens once in a while. It resets your baseline. It gets you back to a clearer, cleaner, reality. And then the job is, and every good dentist will tell you, like you got to start flossing a little bit better, Lipner, and make sure you brush every day and every night. Now, only for 2 or 3 minutes. That's all you need, right? Don't spend the whole day brushing and what. No. Yeah, you spend 2 hours at the dentist or whatever it is. That's enough. So too over here also. We're spending a tremendous amount of time over the next 24 hours in shul, in thought, in introspection, in prayer, and that's amazing. But then find a way to capture something of that, bring it into your everyday life, and if you even want a strategy from a James Clear. I don't know if you read his book, Atomic Habits. One of his strategies with Atomic Habits is that you sit there and you habit stack, meaning if you do something already, then just add 5 minutes after that. So if you happen to always go for a run, maybe 5 minutes you go for the run, say, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to learn one law on Lashon Hara, or I'm going to sit there. If you happen to go ahead and brush your teeth every day, be like, as soon as I put down my toothbrush, I'm going to say the Shema Yisrael, for 5 seconds. Don't create something out of nowhere that has no context. There are already things in our lives that we're doing daily. Just habit stack something of value, of importance, that elevates our existence, our values, our spirituality, and ultimately all those things will elevate our people as well. So with that, we're at 45. I want to everyone a Gemar Chasima Tova, that we should be signed and sealed for greatness. And very often we know that there's a hand that writes in the book what our year is going to be like. God actually doesn't write that. He gives us the pen and Neilah and says, how about you write in the book what it is that you want to see? And then I'll just sign off on it. So what are we going to write is up to us, and that we hope that we pick the right things that God signs off on. And please God, we know that none of the next year is yet written. It's going to be written in a way that we write those stories, and may we merit to see a very different year than the past, but doing what we do best, use the past experiences. The pain that we go through becomes our strength moving forward, and therefore it should bring out our best selves as individuals, as the Jewish people, and ultimately the reality of the best time period for the Jewish people as a result of that the world and our people have ever seen. So Gemar Chasima Tova Chevra. I'm going to stop the recording. Obviously, if anyone has any questions, feel free. And it's wonderful to see everyone.